Good morning, YouTube. I wanted to share this article with you. The article is through the Associated Press, published by FoxNews.com. The title of it is Canada's Supreme Court Strikes Down Anti-Prostitution Laws. This article is of interest to me because I always have an interest in things that are counterpopular. Because I find that everything that exists in this world exists, there's a balance, exists for a reason. Um, Regardless of what you're seeing right now, I'm a natural person, and it's just early in the morning and whatever. So, but I'm not a prostitute. But I am interested in this story. Um, Everything in this world has a balance. Everything has a purpose. This could not exist if there were not people supporting it. But I'm going to go ahead and read the story, and I'll give you my commentary afterwards. Again, the title is Canada's Supreme Court Strikes Down Anti-Prostitution Laws, published yesterday, which is Friday, December 20th, by the Associated Press, 2013. It's published in Ottawa. Basically, it reads, Canada's highest court struck down the country's anti-prostitution laws on Friday, which is a victory for sex workers who stepped up their fight for safer working conditions following the serial killings of prostitutes by a pig farmer in British Columbia. Now, this interests me because I don't know if you guys remember the movie Monster that Charlize Theron played in. That movie portrayed the life story, supposedly, of a prostitute that actually was on trial. She allowed that movie to be published, thinking that it would help her in her case. Now, if any of you actually watched that movie, it was very touching. And when that movie came out, it was in the midst, kind of, well, prior to, it was like going into, my court case that I had with, something that was different. And you can Google it if you want to. That's my real name on the YouTube. But the um, it was very sad to me because the story told of this woman that had been abused all her life. To me, she seemed to be a very nice woman. She was looking for love and respect. And her thing with prostitution was that she was doing what she had to do in order to survive. She didn't feel any type of way about these people. And it came to the fact where she learned that the prostitution thing, it was more than just sex. It was affecting, how she felt about herself mentally because of the way that she was treated and looked at, by members of society for doing whatever it was that she did. And then she made this friend that was a young girl that turned out to be a lesbian, and this person betrayed her as well. So she was betrayed by everyone, that she knows, and she can't even just peacefully do her job because those people, she's being abused by them, raped with baseball, all kinds of crazy stuff. And what ended up happening as a result of this, she had gotten abused so badly, she started murdering, I guess, the people that that were abusive to her. She was, to me, it was like she was standing up for herself. Now, prior to that, some of these things that I could relate to, because being, like I said, a person that was in the system and I was sent to, a homeless shelter and that type of thing, when you're in that situation, it changes your self-esteem about yourself. For me, mine was being falsely accused and convicted of a crime, and then, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, on paper, this is what it says about me, but I know that I'm a good person. I've never done, any of these bad things. And first it starts with affecting how you feel about yourself. You have to fight, and the fight is almost impossible because perceptions run deep, and whatever is advertised, is out there. And then number two, you have that against you. Then you're court ordered to a homeless shelter. So not only are you on paper as somebody that's committed a crime, regardless of if it's overturned or not, it's out there. Two, you're now you're considered homeless. So that's two strikes against you. And then if you're fairly attractive or decent, then you appear to be manipulative. You know what I'm saying? So it's just one thing on top of the other. And in the situation that I'm comparing with the scene in Monster with Charlize Theron, is when The girl tried to get herself together and go out for jobs and job interviews. She, was obviously shaking and scared. She put on a suit, and she went to an interview for like an office position somewhere. And the guy kind of laughed in her face. And she told the truth. She, used to be a prostitute. She was trying to get off the street, and he laughed in her face and propositioned her. How cruel can you get? And the reason I felt that was because when I went to school for IT. I didn't finish, but I had a lot of the knowledge. And the thing about it was I never tried to go into that field because I felt like you had to have the degree. But there were people that didn't have the degree that was getting it left and right. And I had people that wanted to help me, but I didn't want it until I had the degree because I felt like it was the right and wrong way to do things. And so, but I found myself, after I found out the system was really messed up and people were doing whatever, when I was in the shelter, you know, there were people, vendors that came with, trying to push their IT work, and I tried to sell myself to them and was like, hey, I went to school for IT. I'm still very good at it. I can do this and the other. The guy laughed at me, and he said to me, what did he say to me? He was just like, oh yeah, right. You go from homeless to being an IT person you know? So it's not a lot of support out there. People scoff. I remember being in the shelter. There was like a blood bank or blood drive place, and I asked if I could volunteer for them. And the young black guy, went and got the person that owned it because he was just like, I don't see why not. And he was just like, oh, but you live in an institution, you know? So I've always been a rooter for the underdog. I am the underdog perennially because I think I always like to see the alternate side of things. But that's why this story kind of touched me. So if you get a chance, check it out. It's on foxnews.com. Canada's Supreme Court strikes down anti-prostitution laws. Um, I'll continue to read for those that want to hear it. It says the 9-0 Supreme Court ruling found that the laws violated the guarantee to life, liberty, and security of the person. But the ruling won't take effect immediately because it gave Parliament a 1-year reprieve to respond with new legislation. Now, it's very ironic to me that it's stating here that the court ruling found that the laws violated the guarantee to life, liberty, and security of the person. Because all of that, this is in Canada, so maybe it's different, but all of that is being violated in the United States. So I mean, when you think about it, all these rules and laws and all these things that they're passing, what difference does it really make? You know what I'm saying? I mean, is it just so you can have a show in a courtroom? Because in reality, I mean, it just appears to me the system does exactly what it pleases. Next paragraph, prostitution isn't illegal in Canada, but many of the activities associated with prostitution are classified as criminal offenses. The High Court struck down all 3 prostitution-related laws against keeping a brothel, living on the avails of prostitution, and this is what strikes me as so ironic. Living on the avails of prostitution is considered a crime, okay? So it's not a crime to prostitute, but actually being able to live from prostituting is a crime. How amazing is that? And street soliciting. The landmark ruling comes more than 2 decades after the Supreme Court last upheld the country's anti-prostitution laws. The decision upheld an Ontario Court of Appeal ruling last year that struck down the ban on brothels on the grounds that it endangered sex workers by forcing them onto the streets. Chief Justice Beverly McLaughlin, writing on behalf of the court, said Canada's social landscape has changed since 1990 when the Supreme Court upheld a ban on street solicitation. So they're basically, I don't know, it sounds like to me they're saying that everything is rockets now and that's cool, which probably is true. These appeals and the cross appeal are not about whether prostitution should be legal or not, she wrote. They are about whether the laws Parliament has enacted on how prostitution may be carried out pass constitutional muster. I conclude that they do not. They are about whether the laws Parliament has enacted on how prostitution may be carried out pass constitutional muster. I conclude that they do not. Okay. A Vancouver sex worker who was part of a group that brought the case applauded the court's decision. I'm shocked and pleased that our sex laws will not cause us harm in a year, Amy Leibovich said in a news conference. Katrina Pacey, a lawyer for the group, called it an unbelievably important day for the sex workers, but also for human rights. The court recognized that sex workers have the right to protect themselves and their safety, she said. And I'm gonna go back to the story that the movie Monster was based on. It was based on the woman that was a prostitute. Her name was Eileen Warnos. And what's very sad to me is that she gave the rights to this movie, you know, gave all this information for a book, and she felt that she would be just, vindicated and justified and all this other great, wonderful things. But that woman died on death row. And the very day, up to the very day that she was to be injected or whatever it was to take her life away, there were reporters coming in there trying to get stories and make money off of her. So she was used every day of her life up to the very end. Nobody cared about her. She thought that somebody would see the story and come and try to help her. Nobody gave a shit. So I mean, I think that's a very sad thing. And again, for them to say it's an unbelievably important day for workers and for human rights. No, not really. I mean, people are being put to death. You know, defending themselves from being abused. And I have to tell you, I saw a story too, not too long ago about there was this woman. It was around Christmas time, as a matter of fact. A woman. She was a prostitute. She was not. No, she was not a prostitute, but it was a woman that put an ad on Craigslist. She put an ad on Craigslist for a date with a man. Okay. Well, she put an ad on Craigslist advertising prostitution, but she was not a prostitute. So, but what ended up happening was that her boyfriend dropped her off at the guy's house. The guy was looking for sex. She took the money and she left. She tried to leave. The guy shot her dead and he killed her. And when it went to court, the guy won because she took his property. But he was soliciting prostitution. She was not trying to sell her body. Even though she stole the money and she was wrong, he got off for murder. True story. That, to me, that's absolutely amazing. Amazing. That man got away with killing that woman, saying that she stole his money. Crazy. Um. Yeah. So, I'm done with that. If y'all want to continue to read it, you can. Again, the picture is there for you to see.